for our pregame show, we're gonna take a look at some light dark composition from Seijun Suzuki's earliest credited director credit. Let's see, let me pull that up here. Where are we at? There we go. There's our screenshot. And let me get my notes up here. Oh, that's moving around. Cool. And so as a quick heads up, if you're talking in chat, my window is minimized, I don't have two monitors, I might not see you. That doesn't mean I don't care. So, okay, so yeah. So the title of this movie, which is sort of bewildering to me, is titled Underworld Beauty. And the title and also the promotional art, it's strange because it suggests that the sort of female lead, is like a model or something, and that is not part of her character whatsoever. She gets by on like wit and grit. So yeah, you kind of get the feeling that it's one of these titles that was not really measured up to the movie, but sort of designed to sell. So yeah, it's a weird title and is a very good noir movie. It is. I think I remember reading that it was considered one of the sort of like most one of the sort of Japanese noir movies that patterned onto sort of Western noir conventions the most directly. But the one I want to look at in this is the intro, which Seijun Suzuki, of course, is known for. He's kind of known as sort of a weird director. He kind of falls into the same bucket as like David Lynch, and in video games like Sudoku for having a very definable or at least identifiable outlandish style. That style over substance is one of the ways that these directors are often described. And Suzuki did marvelous work in color as he came into his own as a sort of individual stylist. Of course, made his trademark movies. But he does such great work in black and white, and the opening shots to this movie are perfect to sort of communicate sort of what he is ultimately going to wind up doing with his career, and it shows his strength as a traditional storyteller, which is something that he doesn't often get credit for. So just a quick heads up on the sort of like high level of this one. It's a post heist movie. There was a diamond heist that happened several years ago. All of our main characters are living in the aftermath, and so it's about their relationships and what they do with the stolen goods once they're recovered from being squirreled away after the heist. So that's the premise. One of the four who did the heist is going to get them, and that's what opens our story here. So yeah, this is the establishing shot, and you'll notice like right away it's very dark, very almost like flat. It's like you can just see how much of your attention is called to the shape of the screen as a flat surface with how much darkness there is here. And honestly, even the lights, if you look at the street lights here, they don't emanate, right? They don't really cast light on anything. It's like they illuminate only themselves. And the main character, as you can see there kind of in the middle, is just sort of a silhouette, sort of identified with that darkness. He's a shadow himself. And that's characters played by Mizushima Michitaro, and does a really solid job with the characterization of the character at one point, which I'll identify when we get to. And they continue this cool technique as going through the credits. So here you have, I don't know if you can notice that little circular notch that's on the wall there, just to the right of center. You'll have like a visual frame of reference for how this scrolls. You can see Mizushima's shadow there on the far right. And so he continues walking, and the light scrolls to kind of catch his shadow. And if you can see, you can kind of see that notch move a little bit. You can see kind of that it is a scrolling shot. And so they keep up the imagery, the light and dark. The light back there doesn't exist to illuminate anything. The only thing the light really exists to communicate is the shadows and the darkness, and also really nice alignment with the credits here. They make his silhouette line up right in line with the right text, and then as it goes on, there's four rows of text, and it winds up lining up right in the middle. So there's a very nice symmetry there that I wonder if, well, I don't know if it was planned, but certainly taken advantage of in a way that's very compelling. Let's see. So then he arrives at his destination. Again, just looking at the composition of this, it's beautiful. You have the manhole there, and if you look at his shadow, the direction that the shadow they point to his feet, of course, and they also trace, they lead to the edge of the manhole. And if you were to trace a line from his shadow around the edge of the manhole back up, you would perfectly encapsulate that little patch of light that's there. So all the lights, all the shadows are pointing toward this manhole is significant. It's just beautiful. It tells you everything you need to know about what's important in this scene, just visually right off. And the manhole is opened very nicely toward the viewer, so it's sort of an invitation to enter. Welcome to the underworld. What is this fella up to? The police wagon shows up. They don't get him here, spoilers. But if you want to see exactly what it's communicating, look at how light this is. Look at how many lights there are. Look at there's steam billowing up, and the steam is illuminated. The steam almost exists to catch and carry light. And even the lamps here illuminate, right? You can see things in their light. You don't just see the lamps glowing. And so we've got a juxtaposition. You've got the underworld, the dark world, and then you have the law-abiding world. And the light and dark associations are fairly expected, right? It's nothing super surprising there. At this point, it's just sort of a very nice set of visual compositions and use of darkness for a lot of really cool asymmetry. And here is another example. You can kind of see him disappearing into the manhole right there in the lower left with basically all the light there continues to exist to point out that he is in darkness, and that's very cool. This is amazing. I don't know what they did with the filter on this. Filter is probably just is a more of a modern way of thinking than is appropriate for this era of cinema. But whatever they did, somehow the light looks grainier and even flatter. So you lose definition even those pieces of wood in the background of this scene have more definition. Oh, there we go. Than the patch of cloth that's on the back of his jacket. It's amazing. So here he is descending the manhole, and it's very cool, almost creepy. As it holds on that shot as he descends, and again the sort of justice and criminal light and dark juxtaposition here. On the far right, it's kind of hard to tell with that motion here, but on the right, what you're seeing to the right of those letters, that little white spot, that's a hole in the sewer that the police are shining a light through looking for him. And on the left, there's sort of let's see from your perspective, kind of a diagonal progression there, which the smaller text in the upper left and the larger text in the center also reinforce. There's sort of a diagonal progression of your eye from the light where the police are to where he is in hiding. And then we get here, and this is where it gets really interesting. This is where the introduction, the style isn't just really cool and compelling, where it's actually narrative. Because the first real burst of light that we have is actually underground in a place where there is no light. Over here, you can see this is what the sewer looks like, right? It's total dark. He is in the shadows. He's a thief going for his to reclaim his stolen goods. And then we get down here, and we've just completely abandoned realism, right? This is no longer about realistic lighting effects. This is about expression. And that's great. And so your brain should sort of pop at that point. Evening, Iceman Dan. It's good to see you. It's good to see you. I'm glad to have caught you. So he is down here. You can sort of see. Even he is still sort of a shadow. He's in silhouette. As he progresses, you get another glimpse of exactly what this environment actually is like, because he's there. He's kind of chiseling at a wall, trying to get to his hiding place, and the only light elements there are his arms. Everything else is in shadow. I don't think I've seen The Third Man. That's who directed that? I will look into that. So it's he's chiseling. The only element of light here is actually him at this point. He is starting to emerge in this environment, and that's something really that's something important to keep in mind. We haven't actually seen his physique. We've seen light reflected off of his clothes. We've only seen him in shadow and in silhouette. And this is the first time he is actually starting to emerge from that unknown outline. And we got a really nice shot here from inside the hiding place. This is really good. There's a pistol in there, which he's sort of reaching his hand blindly into the hole to grab the pistol, and you can see his fingers putting on it and kind of pulling it out. Then we have this really great shot. Now we're starting to see him. Now he's coming alive. We've entered into the underworld, and he has got a person to be. And this is his, he's getting an identity. So, in between the gun extraction and going for the jewels, he kind of fumbles his hand around. He can't quite find it because he's blindly groping. So then you kind of see him, and he looks in there. And I mean, the composition on this is fantastic. It's beautiful. But then he sees what he's looking for. He goes in, and this is where I mentioned that Mizushima has just really does a really good job with this role. Like, this is where it is. Like, this right here, the way that he grabs that little bag, especially in comparison to the way that he was previously groping around and just grabbing that handgun. This isn't like grabbing at jewels. This is a lift. This is somebody whose hand has conformed to the largest shape necessary to grab this object, and that just totally communicates how much not only is he a thief, but he's been a thief for a long time, and maybe even a thief on the smallest, pettiest levels of, like a wallet lift or something. So just really good characterization, and also really good use of film in its more intimate capacities to sort of look at sort of like gestures and find meaning in them. But this is where it all builds up to. So just to recap, a lot of shadow and light, a lot of shadow. Shadow is the underworld, light is the world of the law. We go down in there. Now once we're fully underground, light starts to appear. He gains an identity. And then we have the lightest, brightest shot out of anything, which is his hand with the diamonds. And there's even special light placed on the diamonds. Not necessarily, and I think it would be easy to read this as light illuminating the diamonds, but I actually read this as light emanating from them. Like, these things are a source of light somehow, and they're casting it out. And so this tells us that the black and white, the use of black and white is not merely aesthetic. It's or only stylistic. It is narrative as well. It tells us his life story. We've escaped the searchlights of the surface world. Found even more light in the sewers, which realistically have no light whatsoever, and found the most light emanating from the stolen jewels. So this is a guy, you could infer from all these images and this progression, this is a guy whose life went from legit to criminal because he found a self on the dark side of the law. And the gains of an old heist provide not just the greatest relief from darkness and uncertainty, but also, and this is where it caps off, and which makes this whole thing so good, he gets an identity. He gets a face. And you can see right there, it's like the same light that is emanating from those diamonds is lighting up his face. And even though he's concerned, and even though he's kind of grumbly there, as he is through most of the film, of course, he's on the later end of a long end of criminal career, and he's as that kind of can wear on you, I assume. Not being a master criminal myself, but yeah, no. But he does, and he has an identity. So, this is sort of impossible if we're thinking about lighting as a literal element here. But when we're thinking about it as a narrative stylizing element, that's really important. And this scene becomes not just about the narrative progression, which it absolutely is, but it becomes about him, and that's really cool. And that gets in evening, Swedish X. It's good to see you. And yes, absolutely looking world weary. Oh yeah, I think you told me about the Third Man last time. I'll look into. I think I acquired that, and just haven't gotten to it. I think I have it on DVD. I think I bought that back in 1999 on DVD, and I still have it. Anyway. A lot of revelations happening at once, right? So what this leads to, and this actually leads into the game that we're going to play tonight. Believe it or not, Beautiful Joe, highly stylized, is beautiful, bright, flashing. The premise of it is you've got Joe, who is a big fan of his Sentai hero from movies and stuff like that. and his girlfriend gets kidnapped into the movie, and he has to enter the movie, and so he just immediately embraces the fiction and the unreality of being able to become a Sentai superhero, and gets the helmet and the mat and the jumpsuit and everything, and it's like No More Heroes, where you have somebody who has an existence in a world of shared reality where other people will look at him and maybe come up with the same description of who this person is, but the world through that person's eyes is what we see and what we know, and the only way that we can really know that world. And that's, even though Beautiful Joe just kind of leans into the fantastic and embraces the fantasy as its base reality, it also builds off of this aesthetic pattern that, I've been on this deep dive of Japanese cinema for about a year and 3 months now. I think I did a count, and I think I'm in 150 movies in, and so this has been a real big quest to kind of find out what is aesthetically popping about these things. And there's one passage from Donald Ritchie's, let's see, this fella right here, 100 Years of Japanese Cinema. Donald Ritchie is the foremost historian on Japanese cinema and sort of its aesthetic trends. And this is a passage from that is sort of a thesis statement for him, and one that he sort of leans into, which is, let's see, I can enlarge this for myself so I can read it. Let's get that bigger. There we go. Let's see, the Western idea of realism, particularly in its naturalistic phase, was something truly new. Yes, all early Japanese dramatic forms had assumed the necessity of a structure created through mediation. Skip down, life was thus dramatically lifelike after only having been explained and commented upon. And this is it. These are the two key words, presentational and representational. Art and entertainment alike were presentational, that is, they rendered a particular reality by way of an authoritative voice, be it a no chorus or the benshi. This approach stood in marked contrast to the representational style of the West, in which one assumed the reality of what was being shown. And Ritchie's argument is that this allows for a greater looseness in what you actually show during a movie and the way that you tell your story. And he actually argues that anime is the culmination of this, because it is entirely stylized. Like it takes this, it takes the presentational aspect and makes that the entire game, right? And Beautiful Joe leans into that very heavily. This is a kind of game whose fantasy is its world and is its narrator. And as I'm revisiting this, having gone through like about 150 of these Japanese noir and Jirageki movies, I'm sort of understanding sort of a path between them, and this is one that seems to me to be in effect. So, with that in mind, Beautiful Joe.